everybody for being here, even people who are behind the post for me. But it is so nice to have you all here today and this opportunity to talk about a couple of opportunities for people to live well with dementia. And I'm going to talk about two things. First is the organization that I work with, which is the National Council of Dementia Minds. And then also I'm going to talk about an event that is an in-person event that happens here in the Lansing area called Ethel's Place. So I'm going to start with National Council of Dementia Minds. It's kind of an interesting name. I'm thinking that probably most of you have not heard of us. Except for Maria. Has anybody heard of National Council of Dementia Minds? Yes, all right. So we are actually a pretty new organization. We're a 501c3 organization. We were founded in May of 2021, so we're coming up on, what is that now, our 4th birthday? And we're a unique organization in that we were founded by people who are living with dementia, early stage and middle stage dementia. And the idea is that very often in society, when somebody gets a diagnosis of dementia, that diagnosis can pretty quickly eclipse their personhood because of the stigmas in society about dementia and living with cognitive change, brain change. And so the National Council of Dementia Minds was founded by a group of, I think it was initially 8 people who are living with early and middle stage dementias who had experienced, upon getting their diagnosis, this feeling of being without direction, without resources, without hope. And they looked around and they said, is there not anybody living well with dementia? Because all you see is commercials on TV advertising things like the Alzheimer's Association and other organizations that are trying to raise money to find a cure, raise money for research. And of course, those types of commercials, there's this tragedy narrative that's inherent because they need to have that sense of urgency and fear to raise money. And that is perfectly fine for what it's worth. You know, we all want money for research toward finding treatments and cures for Alzheimer's and different types of dementia. But what that has left us with is a situation where people who are currently living with dementia are left behind. And that's what we are about as an organization. So again, as they said, I'm Lisa Cooper, and I am Director of Operations for the National Council of Dementia Minds. And what we do is develop, essentially, resources for people to live well with dementia. And I am going to show you, because this is one of the things with our organization. So I work for the organization, and we have a management firm, we have an executive director. But the board are all people living with different types of dementia. And so it's actually kind of a rare thing that I am out talking on behalf of the group, because most typically when we do our events, when we offer our educational programs for care partners, our people who are members who are living with dementia are typically the voices and the faces that you see. One of the things that I want to talk about, with our organization, we do our work, we meet our mission. Our mission is to empower people to live well with dementia. We do our work in 4 different program areas, but at the heart of our work is this idea of our groups, our Dementia Minds groups. And these are groups that are similar to something that you may have heard about elsewhere. You've heard of perhaps peer support groups. These groups are all people who are living with different types of dementia from all different walks of life. And they provide peer support for each other. They empower each other by sharing their experiences and connecting, supporting one another. And we know that's important in terms of everyone's brain health, their physical health and mental health. When people have social connections and they keep their social connections, people are healthier all around. And we also provide opportunities for people with dementia to come together in larger settings through our meetings of the minds. And you might think, well, how does this work? Does this sound surprising to you? I see a couple of nods. So again, we think about the experience of learning that you have dementia or learning that your family member has dementia. So there are different types of dementia. Can you name different types of dementia? If you call out any of them?
Lewy body.
Yes.
Frontotemporal.
Yes. Lewy body dementia, frontotemporal dementia, Alzheimer's dementia, vascular dementia. You all are good. Parkinson's dementia. There's another type called CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. And that is a type of dementia that we see in veterans or athletes. It comes from repeated blows to the head. So there are all these different types of dementia. Alzheimer's dementia is the one that we tend to hear the most about. It's estimated to be 60 to 80% of the cases that are diagnosed. But all these other types of dementia, dementia with Lewy bodies, frontotemporal, vascular dementia, CTE, a lot of people increasingly will be diagnosed with what they'll call mixed dementia because they've got some Alzheimer's and they got some signs of vascular or some of these things that are mixed, more than one type of dementia. And this matters, and it's one of the things that we talk about in our groups, and it's one of the things that we talk about when we do our educational programs, because depending on the type of dementia that you have, in addition to kind of when it's found out, that's the stage. In addition to that, the stage, it matters what type you have because the symptoms, how it manifests, are going to be different from one type of a dementia to another. So you've probably talked about this in some of your other talks here with the foundation and with Burcham Hills. But dementia isn't a normal part of aging. It's caused by disease or damage to the brain. And depending on what part of the brain experiences that damage or what type of disease it is, the types of symptoms that you have and the experience that you have with that are going to be different. So, for example, if somebody has Alzheimer's dementia, that's the one we know the most about, as a general public, because that's the one we see a lot of commercials about. What's the hallmark symptom of Alzheimer's?
Memory issues.
Yes, I heard over here, memory loss, short-term memory loss. But not all types of dementia have that as the symptom that emerges. So this was one of the stories that I've heard similar, and it actually reflects the story of me becoming familiar with dementia in my personal life. My dad developed a type of dementia that we didn't know at the time, but looking back and toward the end of his life, we learned was most likely frontotemporal dementia. He never had the issues with memory loss. And so what I found in my life, and I've heard this elsewhere, other stories that were similar, we didn't recognize in the family, we didn't recognize that what he was facing was a type of dementia because he had other things going on. He had issues with speech, And you will see this in other types of dementia also, but it's like when you're talking to somebody and you can tell they're making the effort to find that word, right? So my dad had that. He also had some of these other symptoms that were pretty disturbing, and we didn't know what it was. They involved him kind of losing his social filter. And so this, again, I've heard other families talk about this. So he began to be kind of a jerk to a lot of people, and he became inappropriate. He became like kind of obsessed with sex, and he would make passes at people inappropriately, like in our family gatherings and things. And so we, like the family members, one by one started to just say, don't bring Jack, don't bring Jack. We didn't know what was going on, was dementia, because he didn't have memory loss. And I'd seen all the billboards and I thought it was all about memory loss. I didn't know. None of us knew. Lewy body dementia is another one that we're starting to hear more about. I kind of think it's as celebrities you find out have a certain type of dementia, we'll start to hear more about it. So frontotemporal dementia, you may have heard about Bruce Willis. He couldn't remember his lines anymore. Wendy Williams. Lewy body dementia, Robin Williams, the actor Robin Williams, ended up having Lewy body dementia. So Lewy body dementia, again, this is one of the ones that if this is what you or a family member has, you want to try to get the diagnosis to find out, because there are some different manifestations. There's these different symptoms. So Lewy body dementia, somebody's more likely to have visual hallucinations, for example. I've talked to some of the guys in some of our groups, and they'll say, the time we realized I had Lewy body dementia was when I would see a fox in my garage, and there wasn't really a fox in my garage. And one guy would see a gorilla. So hallucinations, sleep disturbances. You'll see with Lewy body dementia, when you are asleep and you're dreaming, usually you're paralyzed while you're dreaming. Well, one of the things that we'll see with our folks that have Lewy body dementia is they'll have that function not work right anymore, and they'll be acting out their dreams. So it might be that you end up that spouses need to be sleeping in different beds, so the spouse without dementia doesn't get hit. Different types of dementia with the different manifestations are things that when we get together in our Dementia Minds groups, people will share amongst themselves. And then also, we offer our educational opportunities for others, for people who are family members or care partners of somebody with dementia, for healthcare professionals, for researchers. And what we offer that is a little different, but I think it's turned out really to be transformational for a lot of folks, is our educational programs are led by people who are living with dementia. So like the folks that you just saw on that video, we'll have a screen because we meet virtually, we meet over Zoom, all of our groups, our little groups, our big groups, our educational opportunities are all offered over Zoom. Each of our educational opportunities that we invite care partners in or family members are things like that. You see all the people with dementia, and then they share their perspectives and they answer questions from the family members and the care partners about the topic of that session. The National Council of Dementia Minds, all of the opportunities that we offer, participation in our Dementia Minds groups, the small groups, the big groups, the educational opportunities, they're free to participants. We are funded by private donations and grants, and I wish more grants and I wish more maybe government funding, but we don't have that, especially now. It's not really a time for that. So we are funded by private funders who believe in our mission. And we want to get, and our members who are people living with dementia in our groups, they want to get this information out there as widely as possible because each of them has had an experience that has given them wisdom that they and we all feel like the world needs to know. Caregivers, care partners, other people who are diagnosed with dementia later down the road shouldn't have to, and this is why they all do this, shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. They can learn from the experiences of other people who have been in these same shoes and are now. And one of the things that you will see, again, it depends on the type of dementia that someone has, and it depends on when it's diagnosed, when it's identified. But we have some of the people in our groups who have been living with dementia, living well with dementia, continuing in their homes or in like community settings for many years, for 10, 15, even 20 years, living with meaning and purpose and connection and joy. And that's what the National Council of Dementia Minds is all about. And you would think that sounds like probably enough for me to be talking about, but I have more. So all of the National Council on Dementia Minds events are online, they're virtual. We're based here, we started here in Michigan, but we have members all over the country. We meet in those groups over Zoom, and that works really well for people to have that continued opportunity for social connection without having to deal with issues involving transportation. Whether it's getting someplace in a vehicle or whether it's the idea of mobility generally. Meeting over Zoom, we started this even before COVID and it's worked out really well. But still, when you have an opportunity to get together in person, wow, what a difference that can make. So I want to let you know about this other opportunity here in Lansing, in the Lansing area, called Ethel's Place. And this is AARP. I used to work for AARP before I came to the Council of Dementia Minds. And I still volunteer for AARP because I want to be part of this project, which is so much fun. But Ethel's Place is AARP's twist on the idea of a memory cafe. Memory cafe, is that a concept, a word, a term you all have heard? Some, yeah, some no. So this idea of memory cafes, I don't love the name, and there's some controversy about the name, but that's what traditionally it's been called. This is a concept that started back in the Netherlands in the 1900s. And the idea is that people who are living with dementia or mild cognitive impairment and their family and their friends come together for social connection. It's an opportunity for being together and enjoying everybody's company in a welcoming, inclusive setting where you can be yourself. And this is important, and one of the reasons that AARP got involved is that there are, when we look at the AARP and the Global Council on Brain Health, they have what they refer to as the 6 pillars of brain health. Have you ever heard of the 6 pillars of brain health? All right, I'm just throwing all kinds of stuff out here at you, but 6 pillars of brain health. These are things that science, brain science, and the consensus of the research in brain science has shown are important for everybody to do for the health of their brain. And it's all ages, it's whether you have dementia currently or not. So they are move, getting exercise, staying physically active. They are sleep, making sure you get enough good quality restorative sleep. They're eating right, eating healthy foods. They are keeping your mind active and engaged, learning new things. They are, the 5th one is keeping your stress level managed. And the sixth one is social connection. And so we see with people who are living with dementia and also with care partners or caregivers that that is one pillar that tends to get neglected. Once a person has been identified, has been diagnosed as having dementia, they themselves, and then also their family members, especially as a person's dementia progresses, tend to become more and more socially isolated. So this idea of coming together for an opportunity for social connection is important. It's fun, but it's also good for people's bodies and brains. So we come together for social connection. And then we also, at this particular Memory Cafe, we focus on music in an interactive way. And this is, again, we look to the Global Council on Brain Health, and they did a report on this in 2020, talked about the importance of the value of music to, again, everybody's brain health, dementia or not. And the more interactive you can be with the music, the better. They've shown studies, we've seen demonstrations, and listening to music and dancing to music and singing, they light up all these different parts of your brain. And so we involve music at all of our Ethel's Place gatherings. And what we end up doing, we started out, we weren't sure if we're going to do different things every week, or every month, but it turns out karaoke was so popular, we've ended up doing it every month for the last 2 years. And we will have our people living with dementia, or not, the family members, friends, will pick their songs, they'll sing their songs. We will have our volunteers who are working help out as backup dancers and singers, and then we have a bunch of percussion instruments, quiet percussion instruments. You don't want real loud things because you don't want to be overstimulated. But we offer karaoke at this, and this is once a month. This is at the Lansing Mall that we meet on the first Thursday of every month from 2 to 4. But it feels like it's just a party. We have snacks, we sing and we dance, but it turns out it's literally good for us to be doing that. And it is such a joyful experience. Our people who come who have dementia, the family members, the volunteers, everybody who's there end up at the end of every Ethel's Place feeling happier. You come out lighter, you come out having experienced joy. I had this last Thursday when we had our last Ethel's Place. I was having a bad day, and I thought, I got too much to do, I don't want to go, I just can't. Okay, I'll go. I got the karaoke machines, I gotta go, right? If I don't show up, there's gonna be people rioting, but I went, and as soon as I got there and everybody's laughing and we're singing, my mood was better too. Everybody, our volunteers, that's why our volunteers are committed and they come back every month, because it's such a joyful experience. We have this lady, Ann, who comes and she brings her banjo and she practices her songs, in between the gatherings. Some other people bring their instruments. And it is just a wonderful, joyful experience every month. We offer snacks. We've got also in the back, we have 2 rooms. We have a quiet room because it does get kind of loud and it can be too much. So we have a quiet room as part of this. This particular project is something that, again, I started it when I was at AARP, and we have a group of volunteers that lead it with the support of our AARP Michigan State office. But this, again, is something that's available for participants for free, thanks to the support of AARP. And we invite you, your friends and family, to come if you would like and experience it yourself. I think this experience, the experience of being part of our Dementia Minds groups is something that the more people see it, the more eyes are opened as to how indeed it is possible to live well with dementia, to have joy, to have connection, to have meaning and purpose. And that's why I'm working with National Council of Dementia Minds and volunteering with Ethel's Place. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. I do have a registration up there for Ethel's Place too, if you're interested in that. So if there's any questions, yes, sir.
I've been working with dementia for 10 years with my wife, so I've been there and still doing that. In Stonebriar, and she's over in the residence center right now. Question I have about this group is, it's obvious that these people are early on in their diagnosis. And I have two questions about that. Number one is they all seem to be willing participants. One of the hallmarks, at least with my wife, maybe because she had a very stressful, very impossible childhood, was that she became very defensive about it. And I don't think there was any way in the world, even early on, that I'd have been able to get her to go to something like this. I tried, and she
Yes.
wasn't part of it. So I guess, how do you crack through that? And the second thing is, obviously, these people are all going to eventually deteriorate. And what happened? How long do they last there? And
Yeah.
what criteria do you use to say that you can't be here anymore?
Yeah, a couple of really good questions, and I don't know if everybody could hear. So one is he's talking about experience of his wife and her behaviors that might have made her probably maybe not fit in a group setting like this. And then also what happens, people, we're talking about cognitive change in adults that is progressive. So what happens as the condition progresses? Those are really good questions. So when you think about the types of services and supports that exist for people as they age, that exist for people with dementia at any age and stage, there is a need for different things for different people. The National Council of Dementia Minds has this line that the folks repeat all the time, which is, you saw it on the video, if you've met one person with dementia, you've met one person with dementia. It is so different from person to person. Our Dementia Minds groups are not for everybody. They are for people at this particular age and stage in their life. Our folks who would join one of these groups, the peer support groups, and do the presentations and the educational Q&A with caregivers and researchers and others, they're at a place where they have agreed that they want to and they are able to participate. And so we have paperwork, that says that they're willing to participate and want to do this. Once somebody is in a group, because of the peer support aspect, they have so far remained, for the most part, remained in their groups, even as they progress. And again, some people progress quickly, some people it's over many, many years. Very different from person to person. But our experience so far has been, once they're in a group, they'll stay in the group because they build such strong relationships with the others in the group. However, they may not continue to go out and present. So they'll show up for the weekly peer support, but they're not going to be out there doing a presentation at a conference. But they'll stay in there because they've built those friendships and relationships for as long as they're able to still sign in or have somebody help them sign in onto Zoom. Now, as far as the Ethel's Place event, that is for a bit broader of an audience. It tends to be for people who are living in a home or community setting. Like, it's not really made for people to, take a van from a facility and go and show up. It's not an adult daycare center. You may hear about that sometimes when people talk about respite in adult day. It's not that where you have a person with dementia who's not really communicative and you just drop them off for the family member to be able to go take care of shopping or, take care of their own, have some time away. It's not that. There are those types of things in we call it the continuum of long-term services and supports. There are those other types of programs and services, and those are really important too. This isn't that though. This is where people are in a situation where they're still going to be able to enjoy it with their friends and family. We do have people who come out to tell you another quick story before they probably are going to yank me off here maybe, but we had one of our months, a few months back, we had a gentleman, an older gentleman in a wheelchair and his wife, and it turns out his name was James Ellis. And we're there chatting with them, the volunteers, because we have all our volunteers that are there chatting up with everybody. Well, it turns out he's the last surviving member of the Satin Tones, which was the first band Motown ever signed. And so he was there. He's not really talking, but he is there. We learned his story. His wife was with him. And so our DJ that day, our karaoke DJ, pulled up on YouTube one of their old videos. They're one of the songs of his band from back in the day, and played it. And first the DJ was saying, "Oh, we've got this. Here's a song that one of us has sung here before." And we're all looking around, we're thinking, who did this song? We don't remember somebody doing this karaoke song. And it turns out it was Mr. Ellis and the Satin Tones. And he sat there, and he's just kind of smiling and nodding, and we were all dancing to his song. And it was, again, just a wonderful experience. But his situation at that point, he's not going to be in a Dementia Minds group. He could still come and experience this, with his wife and with another couple that they're friends with, and they come. But it's important, I think, wherever you are and you and your family, to be aware of the types of services and opportunities that are out there that are going to fit you for where you are now. And then you be aware of what might be out there for future when you're at a different place. But there are different things that are out there, and not everything's going to fit for everybody. But hopefully we can find, you can find fits for where you are, when you are. And you're like, if I answer every question that long, you're going to get like 2 questions in there. Yes, I see. I don't know if you were in the front or in the back first.
I was just going to say to the gentleman who just answered the question, please submit, your question to the Greater Lansing Care Foundation, because if something like activities or such that can help your wife, or something you're interested in a memory care facility, something that you can help engage with her at, if that's something that's a concern of yours, please submit it so they can evaluate that and see if that might be something that they can help facilitate.
Yes. Yeah, very helpful. Yes, ma'am.
I wondered about the Dementia Minds groups. How many people are in a group? Is it just free form? Is there some kind of structure to it, or a question they talk around? Like, what's the actual experience and substance like?
Yes. So that is a really great question. And this is something that, as far as we know, we're pretty unique in this regard. The idea of Dementia Minds groups. So we currently have 10 of them that have people from around the country, and the number of people that we have in them each will vary some, but they're usually around 10. It can vary. Those groups, that's kind of the heart of our membership. Those groups will tend to meet once a week over Zoom, and we have a structure that our volunteer facilitators will use as a general rule. So we get together for an hour. We do check-ins at the beginning, kind of, how's everybody doing, what's going on, you hear about different challenges, medical, whatever, family things. And then we'll dive into what our discussion is going to be for the day. And this is where I think we are unique. Our discussion questions are about the group kind of figuring out what its mission is going to be as a group. What is it that is going to be their message that they have for the outside world? So we have different groups, and they're connected by different sorts of affinities. So we have some of them are based on their kind of their identity. Some of them are based on their past profession. Some of them are based on their relationship status. So we have, for example, our most active group in terms of producing stuff and getting out there and doing presentations is our Doctors with Dementia group. So this is this fascinating group. They are all former physicians who now have some sort of dementia themselves. So they call themselves Doctors with Dementia, Prescription for Change, flipping the script. And their mission is to change the primary care, in particular primary care physician-patient experience for people facing cognitive change. They are united in this because their stories, they came from different places, but now they are together. They realize that they share a very similar story in that they wish, they say, they wish they knew then what they know now. They wish they knew what they know now about the experience, what it feels like, what it's like to live with dementia when they were treating patients with dementia or looking at diagnosing patients with dementia. So they are involved in a mission to change that, to improve the experience that people have with their doctors, people facing cognitive change with their doctors. We have one of our groups, so the groups come up with their own names. They kind of come up with their own identity, and our volunteer facilitators help them kind of help pull those threads and bring it together and send reminders and help them to be able to tell that story. One of our groups, the Black Dementia Minds, they're all African American, so there you go. They came up with their name. They're actually going to be presenting at a national conference next week in Georgia that is about doing outreach into Black churches about dementia and brain health, because that's their mission, is getting past stigma in their communities, their church communities in particular. That's their mission. They're out there. But each of the groups, through meeting on an ongoing basis, they build those relationships, but then they also develop amongst themselves. They start to kind of gel on what is it that we've got to tell the world. And then that becomes part of what they do. So it's not just peer support, it also becomes education and outreach, because they're like, okay, this is now, I'm in this situation. All up to that point in their lives, they had had purpose, right? They had had a career, they had had a family, and now things are different because of the cognitive, the brain change they're facing. Now things are different. And so in these groups, they start to decide on, okay, how is it now? What is my experience? What is this experience and the wisdom that I've gained now through having dementia? What is it that I can offer the world? And that's what they end up doing. Now that's not for everybody, right? But for those people that are in those groups and do that, it's amazing. It's the joy and the connection, the support, but also, again, that meaning and purpose on top of that. The bigger groups that we have, the meeting of the minds, those will have more people together, maybe about 50 at a time, people living with dementia, and that's not just people who are in the groups, that's a bigger, wide open net. And the groups come together in bigger settings and they share their experiences. And then those bigger groups are who are the expert presenters, the lived experience expert presenters in our Friends and Family series, the educational events that we do for family care partners, caregivers, care providers. Again, the longest answers in the world there, but hopefully that gives you that was a really great question, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to be able to share a little bit more about our mission as an organization and some of those really very special aspects.